What is going on, wonderful people? Thank you for stopping by the channel. You got Sturcules here, and today I'm going over my TPA Season 3 draft. So, TPA is another league I joined. If you've watched some of my content, you've probably seen I'm in a league called the MPDL, which is an awesome league. You should go check out my content for that. But I'm also in a league called the TPA, the Tailored Pokemon Association. Really awesome group of guys ran by two guys named Zach and Ben. So there's another Ben in the league, and they do a really good job running it. Just everyone in it is a lot of fun to play against and to talk back and forth with about a game we love, Pokemon. I want to go over my Season 3 draft because I am extremely excited about it. In my other league, I'm the Utah Copperages. In this league, I decided to go with a older team that I actually used to be in the MPDL called the Tennessee Titangrowths. I'm a pretty big Tennessee Titans fan, and I think Tangrowth looks cool. So you can see on the left there is my not super great looking logo that I made myself. I was proud of at the time, and upon seeing a lot of other logos, I realized it wasn't that good, but I'm putting it on there because I've put a lot of work in back in the day. And the other logo you can see to the right of it, which is much better, the more sleek looking logo with just the T and the tentacles coming off, is one that a guy in our league made that just looks fantastic. He nailed a bunch of the logos on here. So we're going to go ahead and go through our team. Like I said, this is Season 3, and I've been lucky enough to be in it since the get-go. So I'm actually two-time champion of the league, which is really funny because I don't think I've by any means been dominant or even really the best player in the league. I think Season 1, I really thought Cole Rocket from the MPDL, he was in that league, and I really thought he was going to win. And then last year, the two guys running the league, Zach and Ben, both had amazing teams, and I thought one of them was going to win the league. And somehow I pulled it out both seasons, and I know this, I took a screenshot, so this picture isn't super clear, but that was my team. At the end of Season 1, obviously had some free agent moves, but I was lucky enough to have Dragapult, the league MVP, on my team. And then for Season 2, I pulled off the championship again. Did not really expect it either year, but super happy to do it. They're my only two draft league championships, though I've been to one more in the MPDL, but I lost that one. And I was lucky enough to have the MVP for Season 2 also, G-Max Rillaboom. So this year, they're not doing G-Maxes in the league, and they added all the new Crown Tundra Pokemon into it, so it's going to look a lot different from what we did the first two seasons, but I'm really excited for my new team. In fact, this team I just drafted might be my favorite team ever. We'll just have to see as the season goes on. I'm sure some stuff will have to be dropped out of necessity, but I'm really liking how the team's looking, and I am going to show you that in 3, 2, 1, boom. Don't normally show the entire team at the front, but I'm doing things a little different this time. Usually I go through one by one and talk about what each Mon does. I'm going to introduce each Mon. I'm going to give a little info about them. And then at the end, I'm going to be kind of grouping them together for things they can do on the team. And I'll talk about them a little further there. So hopefully you can learn some more about the Pokemon I drafted and Pokemon you might be planning to use, whether it is competitively in a draft league, whether you plan it to use on the ladder at some point, or if you just want to use it in a playthrough. Maybe you'll learn something. If not, I just hope you enjoy seeing my team. But as you can see, it's looking pretty good. Kartana, Nidoking, Slowking, Spectrier, Wigglytuff, Dragonite, Hitmontop, Rotom Frost, Colossal, Grimmsnarl, I kept wanting to call it Impidimp, and Steelix. So I think I have a good mix of defense and offense here. We'll break that down a little more, but pick number 1 is Kartana, who I nicknamed Waragame because he is my origami warrior. I actually just got a shiny one of these in Pokemon Sword and Shield through the Dynamax Adventure thing. I'd been fighting a lot of Kartanas trying to get one, and I finally got one. So that shiny Kartana I'm going to use on my team is going to feel that much more special. I named that one Waragame also. As you can see, we get 120 free points we can use, so the tiers are split up by points in this league, like we're doing in the MPDL. I think we did this for Season 2 also, and Season 1 was by tiers, like tiers 1 through 5. But basically, the point totals go anywhere from 20 to 2. So 20 being the highest, down 18, 16, so forth, every 2 points until 2 points. Those are the lowest value mons. So I've got 18 points, which means Kartana comes from the second highest tier. It's a grass and steel type, so it's only got one weakness of fire. It is also weak to fighting as well. Its ability Beast Boost is really great. Every time it gets a knockout, its highest stat gets a 1-stage boost, and excuse me. As you can see, that 181 attack stat is massive, so you're basically getting an attack boost every time you're able to knock out an opponent. Kartana is good at doing that because it hits super hard with Grass and Steel, but it also gets things like Knock Off, Sacred Sword, Psycho Cut to hit other things. As you can see, it's actually got a really good defense too, so you could make the EVs work to where you get a defense boost. But with Kartana's speed and attack, you usually want it as an attacker. Its special attack and HP are very bad, and its special defense is complete garbage. You're dying to most special hits, so you need to either be faster or have switch-ins ready. You can, I think, make the speed boost upon killing if you did like a minus attack nature and minus EVs invested in speed, and then you could still like swords dance and hit pretty hard with it. Is a thing you could run if you wanted to boost its speed, but usually you're just letting it boost with its attack and just hitting stupid hard and having fun doing so. Next up, we got Nidoking, my man, my favorite Pokemon. No one's surprised. Didn't really plan to grab it this early. I honestly actually had a few things I really wanted sniped pretty early. So outside of Kartana, a lot of things I wanted were gone. And so I'm just like, you know what? I know I want Nidoking. Was planning on trying to steal it later, but I'll just get it now. So it was 12 points, a little higher than the middle range. Really good mon. Poison and Ground is a pretty cool typing. In fact, I believe it and Nidoqueen are the only Poison and Ground mons. I should explain its nickname. When Nidoking is shiny, it's blue. And the Tennessee Titans are blue. And Derrick Henry, where's that Tennessee Titan blue? And he looks like a beast, just like Nidoking. So I did King Henry the 22nd. 22 is Derrick Henry's number. It's all making sense now. Hopefully Nidoking's got as good of a stiff arm this season as Derrick Henry and taking down its opponents. The thing that's so great about Nidoking is sheer force, its ability. Boosts moves with a secondary chance in attack power, so things like Poison Jab, things like Earth Power, Ice Beam, Thunder Punch, things like that are getting a boost in power, so it hits really hard with its great attacks. And it does get Poison Point that you can use. 81 HP is right at average. 102 attack is very good. Its defenses being 77 and 75 are lower than average, but it can take it usually at least a neutral hit. Okay. Its special attack at 85 doesn't seem that great, but with sheer force it hits very hard from both sides. And a lot of times you actually run a special Nidoking just because its moves are so good. And then it's got an 85 speed, which is above average, but still not super fast. So that can run into some problems. You do see it run Choice Scarf sometimes because of that. Coming in at number 3, we've got Slow King, a.k.a. King Me. Had Slow King on my NPDL team and ended up dropping it. Was very sad to do so, so I'm glad to welcome King Me back to the squad. This mon is so fun to run with Regenerator, with Trick Room. It gets that Regenerator health back. It sponges hits from both sides really well. Gets a lot of good coverage moves, but it also gets its tech options. It gets its healing with Slack Off and Regen. It can use Yawn. It can use Thunder Wave, etc., etc. Bulky Water type, which you love to have on the team, and Psychic also does not have many weaknesses. So at 10 points, I thought this was really good value. But within our first 3 picks, we do have to realize that we've already used 1/3 of our points. So down the road, we really need to start looking for some value steals. But real quick, it's got a great HP stat at 95. Surprisingly usable attack at 75, though you'll almost always be special. Good defense with 80. Really good special attack with 100. Can hit hard with coverage moves. And great special defense at 110. It's very slow, but that kind of plays to its advantage since it runs things like Teleport and Trick Room a lot. So really great mon. Next up, we got Spectrier, who I've named Mystery. Shout out SpongeBob reference, am I right? But I thought it kind of went with the mystique of the horse too. But isn't that what he named his seahorse? I hope so, or else I'm going to feel stupid. But I spent another 18 points. I'm spending big early, but I'm really excited to have this. Pure Ghost type was really good offensively, and it gets the ability Grim Neigh, which is a lot like Beast Boost, except it is always its special attack that gets a boost upon knocking things out. So you can already see how having Spectrier and Kartana, I'm just going to have so much fun sending them in just to click buttons. Now, the problem is Spectrier gets really bad coverage moves. Like, it gets a few okay normal moves like Uproar, but you're locked into Uproar. It gets Hyper Beam, but you can't move the next turn. I think it gets Snarl, maybe, which drops opposing special attack and is pretty weak, but it's a dark move. It gets some okay physical coverage, but as you can see, 65 base attack is not good. You don't want to use it. You want to use that 145 base attack. The best move you can do is just click Shadow Ball over and over. And really, it doesn't take a whole lot more than that. I mean, it does learn good moves like Taunt and Foul Play and Nasty Plot. You could run Uproar or something like that on it. But Shadow Ball hits everything neutrally except for Normal and Dark. So Dark resists it, and Normal is immune. But the other 16 types either take neutral or weak damage from it, which makes it a very strong special attacker. So with its great special attack, really even a dark type often isn't going to be able to switch in multiple times on this. So what's important for me is just to have mons that can switch in on dark, both dark and normal types, which I think I covered nicely with a few of my later picks. So that helps out a lot. But hitting them is a problem, and part of that is drafting sometimes a mon that you think could wall this okay. A lot of times is good to have on your team, and you're going to see that with one of my latest picks. Really ends up pairing well with Spectrier because of that in multiple ways. Looking at its stats, 100 base HP makes it actually mean that a lot of neutral hits it's going to live, even though it doesn't have a good defense, and it has an okay special defense. But what you see pop off is always going to be its special attack and its speed. You run a positive speed nature, and you're going to outspeed almost everything. 135 base speed is pretty great. So that's going to be really fun to use as a choice user, as a setup user, as a late game cleaner. So I'm really excited to get that. Definitely worth the 18 points, if nothing else, just because I've never used it before. And at this point, a lot of good things that I get excited to draft I've used at least once or even for half a season. So getting something new is always exciting. So coming up next, we got Wigglytuff, which is Hugs Bunny. And I actually have this on my current NPDL team as well as the fairy type representative for that team. And I think it's a really good low tier fairy. As you can see on the screen, I actually drafted Slurpuff, but after the draft, cool system that Ben and Zach decided on is we got 48 hours to make up to 3 free trades that wouldn't go against our 5 trades for the season. So I immediately dropped 2 things, and this was one of them. As much as I love Slurpuff, it was on my team in TPA last year. It's very versatile with webs, with being able to set up, with being a wish passer. I wanted a little more lower tier value, and I actually like Wigglytuff better as a wish passer just because if you look at its stats, that 140 base HP means when you pass a wish off to something else, they're getting so much health back. It's really awesome, and it is good at healing itself. In fact, that HP makes up for its lackluster defenses. If you look, 45 base defense and 50 base special defense do not take hits very well normally, but when you've got that high of an HP and when you are able to heal yourself back up with Wish, it actually becomes a pretty formidable wall on both sides. That 70 base attack is kind of wasted. I wish you could relocate those points into one of its defenses. 85 attack is good enough to use, and 45 speed is not great, but as a defensive mon, a lot of times they are slower, and hey, that's a trick room option. You can see its abilities. It gets Frisk and Competitive. Competitive is really good. If it's one of its stats drops, its special attack is doubled. Most times, though, running Frisk is so much better. Getting to reveal your opponent's item can be life and death in some matches. So having that anytime I bring this is going to be really cool. It being a normal fairy type is pretty unique, so that's cool. And it's only 6 points off the board, which is things like that are what I really needed. Having everything else I've drafted so far has been in the double digits point-wise. So that's really nice, especially when my next pick, I go and snag my third 18 tier Pokemon. Once again, that's the second highest tier you can pick from. Dragonite's just so good. I couldn't pass it up this late. In fact, this was one I considered taking in the second round when I wasn't sure what to take. But I went ahead and took Nidoking because there were a few dragons around that I all would have been excited to use. But getting here, one thing I did notice about my team is I didn't feel like I had good priority yet. And Dragonite does use the move Extreme Speed really well with having such a great attack that hits pretty hard. So I decided it was worth the 18 points. Dragon Flying is a pretty decent typing, other than the fact that it is 4 times weak to ice moves, but it has its ability Multi-Scale, which weakens moves if it's at full health. So not only does it get things like Roost to be able to recover its health, it's got a Wish Passer and Wigglytuff, which can help it get back to full. And as of Generation 8, since we have the item Heavy Duty Boots, which I always have trouble saying, got it out that time okay, really helps a lot on something like Dragonite. It can come in on Stealth Rocks and not have to worry about its multi-scale being broken. But it does also get inner focus, which is a cool ability. If you're facing something like a Jirachi or a Togekiss that wants to flinch you to death, it makes you unable to be flinched. Um, Pseudo legendary stats are so good, man. 91 base HP is good, 95 defense is very good, and 100 special defense is great. So you're looking at a really bulky mon that can take hits well. Dish attack back's huge. 134 base attack means even if you don't invest into attack, it's still hitting hard. You can invest into HP and speed, and set up a Dragon Dance, and then it's hitting super hard. And it actually gets a really good array of coverage moves, so as a special attacker, it's really good too. You could run a Choice Specs Dragonite with water moves, with Thunderbolt, with Draco, and just hit things really hard. But it is a better physical attacker. It can be really tempting to just run Dragon Dance or Choice Band every week on this thing, and honestly, you're not making a bad decision because it's going to hit super hard, and it has coverage to hit literally any type, which is great. If I could change one thing about Dragonite, it would be that I would give it U-Turn. I really wish it had that move, but it's still really good. It did get a buff in getting Dual Wing Beat as another flying type move. So yeah, and I forgot to say his nickname is Mega Yoshi. I will have a shiny Dragonite on my team, so he will be green, and that nickname will make a lot more sense. So moving on past this monster is Hitmontop. I've used Hitmontop one time before in Draft League ever, and it was actually in Season 1 of the TPA on that championship squad. I really enjoyed its value, and back then it didn't have the move Triple Axle, which takes advantage of Technician. So really good mon, 8 points, fighting type, which is helpful to help break down the normal types that Spectre hates. Named it Spinception. If you've seen Inception, you get the totem spinning reference. But also, look at his face. Tell me he doesn't look a little bit like a young, angry Leonardo DiCaprio. So it also gets Intimidate, which I think is great because its HP is really low, but it has a good defense and great special defense. So when you factor in things like Intimidate, that really helps its longevity, being able to take hits really nicely. You can do a lot of different things. With Technician, you can make it offensive with its stab moves like Mach Punch, with the ice move Triple Axle, things like that. But if you go Intimidate, you can make it really defensive. Good Assault Vest user, good spinner. So a lot of value for 8 points, and I think it filled some holes on my team nicely. Here for 2 straight picks, I get even more value. At 4 points, you get Frost and Powers, the Rotom Frost. I don't think I need to explain that name to you too much, but really excited to have it. Actually, also have this on my current NPDL team. I picked it up halfway throughout the season. Electric and Ice is a really good type. They call that Bolt Beam, and Electric and Ice just basically hits everything offensively. Now, Ice types are not good defensively, but it was actually really important to me to have some other thing that could help resist Ice moves with Dragonite and Nidoking, and really even basically Kartana, all not taking hits from Ice types well. Even Slowking, who takes resisted Ice type moves, it takes a super effective Freeze Dry. So having an Ice resistance is nice, even if that is the only thing Ice resists. But Levitate does help because then Electric would normally be weak to ground, and in this case it's not affected. Once again, kind of like Hitmontop, it's got that really low HP, but it's balanced out by 2 really good defense stats, defense and special defense both being 107, meaning it can take hits pretty well on either side, and Heavy Duty Boots helps with its Stealth Rock weakness, and at base 105 it hits really hard with its attacks. It can pivot around with Volt Switch. It gets decent coverage, but really its stabs are what you're usually clicking, and it gets some good support options that you'll see later. 86 is not a bad speed tier. I really wish that the Rotoms were in the 90s speed-wise. But it's hard to ask for more out of their stats because they do have really good stats. So really excited to use this. It can be used in a lot of different ways, offensively, defensively, or support. So coming in at pick 9, I got another value pick of only 4 points. That's 2 straight picks that I really like having on the team that only amount up to 8 points, which is really nice because I'm still under 100 points with 2 picks to go. After this, that kind of helps me able to get some higher tier mons again, or at least mid tier. We got the Rock and Fire type Colossal. You'd think this was my favorite Pokemon because this is Season 3 of the TPA, and I have had Colossal on my team every stinking season. I'm actually, I should say at least design-wise, I was never really that big on Colossal, and I'd never used it before I tried it in Season 1 of the TPA. but I'm just in love with the value you get out of it at such a low value. And I know why it is that low. It does have 2x4 weaknesses. It does have some common weaknesses. It is slow and doesn't hit crazy hard, but I think as a defensive and support option, it's really good because that 110 HP, 120 defense, and 90 special defense, it really does take hits well on both sides. It gets some good abilities. Flame Body can burn. Flash Fire gives it a fire immunity. And Steam Engine is probably its worst ability, but it's also its signature one, so I felt like I had to include it. But that might be used at some point if you get hit by a fire or water move. Your speed basically maxes out. Or it goes up to 8 stages, yeah. So, but it's got a usable attack on each side, and now that it can learn Meteor Beam, that's kind of cool. But really, Stealth Rocks, Spikes, Rapid Spin, sponging up hits, that's what you want it to do. 30 base speed means I can run it in Trick Room, though, which is kind of cool. But that's really all there is to say. I name it Locomotive. Did I say? Yeah, Frost Mirrors. Okay, I name it Locomotive because it's like a locomotive train its line made you think it was going to be a train, and Mauna Lao is a famous volcano. So Locomotive, made it a pun, kind of, not really. Pick number 10, Grimmsnarl. I've never used Grimmsnarl in Draft League. I've used it laddering before, and it's really fun to battle with. Pick 10, second to last round in the draft. I was psyched to get this. When I'm talking about support stuff later, you're going to see it pop up a lot. It can do so much. Prankster is an amazing ability. I did spend 14 points on it, but you see I still have 8 points from my last pick. This adds a second fairy type, but I think Grimmsnarl and Wigglytuff are different enough that having both is nice. And this has a dark and fairy type, meaning that this helps out a lot defensively with a switch in for Spectrier, but also this is a mon Spectrier doesn't want to face. Being a dark type that can take hits and having a very powerful Sucker Punch, I'm happy to have this on my team so I don't have to face it. But also fairy type helps break down other dark types that will go up against, making Spectrier even better. Infiltrator is also a really good ability, hitting through Substitute and screens. So I named my Grimmsnarl Grimson Lightning. If you like Digimon, you might kind of get that reference. What is it? Myotismon was the vampire Digimon, and he used the move Crimson Lightning. So I just mashed them together, baby. Grimson Lightning is going to be a beast. 120 base attack hits really hard. 95 HP is good. Very lackluster defenses, but with being able to prankster up some screens and use prankster bulk up and having priority and sucker punch and then good coverage all around makes it actually pretty usable. And 60 speed is not good, but prankster makes up for the speed, and it's slow enough that I could use it in Trick Room if need be. So it gets a lot of cool options. Very excited to use it. Cool designed mon. Lastly, we've got Steelix, who I named Festus. If you read the Percy Jackson or Heroes of Olympus books as a kid or as an adult, then you may remember that name. It was like a mechanical golden dragon thing. And Steelix is shiny as gold, and it looks kind of like a dragon, so I thought that'd be fun. Some of my favorite books in my teen years, and as an adult, still fun to read. But Steelix is who's on the squad. I initially drafted Berserker. In the heat of the moment, I only had 4 points left in the draft. Dropping Slurpuff actually gave me more points to be able to upgrade to Steelix. But I wanted a defensive steel type because Kartana can't take hits, and I just didn't have the points for a defensive steel type. So I took Berserker. Like, hey, it's got an okay HP, it's got an okay defense, and all I was really thinking is this thing is going to be a monster in Trick Room. But when I had the points, I saw Steelix as a very big upgrade for the team. I'm sorry, Berserker, you didn't make the squad. That's actually my favorite steel type ever. So I still haven't gotten to use it in competitive, but I have used Steelix before, and it's great at how well it takes physical hits. That adds a lot of defensive options to my team. Its abilities, Sturdy, Rockhead, and Sheer Force, can all be usable. Sheer Force is cool on like Iron Head and Rock Slide because those moves have a chance to flinch. Sheer Force takes that away and just makes them stronger. And that's better anyway because Steelix is so slow, it's not going to be flinching things. So Steel and Ground, pretty cool defensive typing. Rounds out my points at 120. And if you just look at its stats, a lot of them are pretty mediocre. Like HP 75 is okay. 85 attack is decent. 200 defense is fantastic. So good that you really, a lot of times, don't even have to invest into defense, so you can invest into HP and special defense, making it take hits okay. With the 65 special defense, not very good, but if you fully invest with that in HP, you can actually eat up some special hits. And 30 speed, once again, it doesn't need a whole lot of speed, but dropping Slurpuff and Berserker took away some offensive options and did take away my sticky webs and a good U-turner, but it gave me better defense at taking hits. It gave me what I see as a better cleric and Wigglytuff for what I needed anyway, and then 2 really good hazard setting options. So yeah, that is the squad. Let's look a little bit just at what each thing brings. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but it's hard not to gush about your team after you drafted it. But I kind of wanted to just group together what everything could do. I have 4 hazard setters on my team. Colossal gets Stealth Rock and Spikes. I love spike stacking, trying to get up 3 layers of spikes, especially if you've got the breakers that I have, like Kartana and Spectrier, like Nidoking and Dragonite. They're coming on rocks and spikes, and then just one hit a lot of times can clean them up. So Wigglytuff, for some reason, also gets Stealth Rocks, which is cool. Nidoking gets Stealth Rocks, which I probably won't run that much, but it's nice to know it has it. And it does get Toxic Spikes, which is cool to run. And that goes along with he can also absorb Toxic Spikes. And then Steelix is probably my best rock setter. So I like the thought of Steelix or Wigglytuff being able to bring rocks on any given week, and then Colossal having more options, being able to bring spikes. That's a pretty cool thing. So I like to usually have at least 2 to 3 rock setters, 1 spike setter, and then 1 other, either Toxic Spikes or Sticky Webs. So I covered that, so I was pretty happy. With Hazard Removal, I was also really happy. I like to have at least 1 Rapid Spinner and 2 Defoggers. And I ended up with 2 Rapid Spinners and 3 Defoggers, so I was really happy. Hitmontop is a great Rapid Spinner since it resists rocks. And Colossal is also a very good Rapid Spinner just because it's so bulky. And then Rotom is a good defogger, especially with heavy-duty boots. Dragonite and Kartana are not ideal defoggers just because if that's your hazard removal, then you're taking away huge offensive options. Even if I wanted to run a defensive Dragonite, I'd want to have like an attacking move like to hit or Dragon Tail to phase them and run like Toxic Sub and Roost or something like that. I really don't want to waste a slot with defog if I don't have to. Same thing with Kartana. There's so many moves you want to run plus Swords Dance. So having 2 spinners plus Rotom, who I think is a better defogger, helps take the weight off of them. But at the same time, in any given match, I could run defog if I had to on those. So that's the hazard. Whatever. I can't think of the word. Moving on to support. We've got our pivoting. If there's anything that I do not like about my team, it is that the pivoting is not quite as good as I would like. I don't have a U-turner. That makes me really sad. U-turn is one of my favorite moves. It's so useful for chipping things down, switching something fast into something that can take a hit better. But I do have a Volt Switcher, which is the electric special version of U-turn. I didn't look to see, actually. I don't think Slowking gets Flip Turn, but Slowking does get Teleport, which is a negative priority move, so you would take your hit and then pivot out. That stacks amazingly with Regenerator when you get a 3rd health back after taking that hit. And then Wigglytuff gets both Baton Pass and Teleport. So no U-turner. If there's anything I change throughout the season, that's definitely going to be a goal, is whatever I drop, which I'm not sure it would be to pick something up that can give me a good U-turner to have on the team. But I like to have more pivoting than I've got, but you got to roll with what you got. Your team is always going to have a weakness. That's something you got to know. It's either going to be weak to a type or 2 that you don't realize, like you got 5 Mons weak to ground sometimes and you didn't even realize it. Your team might be too predictable offensively. You might not have good hazard setting or hazard removal. Your team might not have great healing or not have great pivoting, and I think that's what I ran into. I don't think my team has the greatest pivoting, but you got to roll with it. When looking at Cleric and Healing, I'm kind of mixing those together because really the only Cleric Mon I have is Wigglytuff, but I do have Mons that can heal themselves. So, as you know, with Slowking, it's got Regenerator, but it also gets the move Slack Off, which heals up half of its health. Kartana gets Synthesis. As you saw with stats, Kartana is not going to be taking any special hits. But, I mean, it can take a physical hit, and if it's, say, running Life Orb, and that's chipping down its damage, you could potentially run 3 attacking moves with Synthesis. And if a Mon you think of switching out, you could click Synthesis and get some health back. Wish Passing is probably safer, but Rotom Frost doesn't really get healing. It gets the move Pain Split, which means it averages out the HP between the 2 Mons on the field. So if I were facing a Clefairy, let's say Clefable, that had a lot of health and Rotom Frost was really low, if it did that, it would get some health back. But it's not really reliable recovery. I just put it on there because I guess it counts. And then Dragonite gets Roost. That it can heal itself. I didn't get anything with Leech Seed. The other cleric thing I didn't mention is on top of Wish, with Wigglytuff, it does get, I think, Heal Bill, which takes away status conditions that have happened to my team. Taunt, Encore, and Trick, which sounds like I'm slamming a lot of things together, but to me, these moves can really do a lot of the same thing. Taunt stops any move that's not an attacking move from happening. Encore makes a move, the only move that a Mon can use. Like if Nidoking had learned Sludge Wave and gets Encored, it can only click that. And then Trick locks you, if you use it with a choice item, would lock them into that one move. Got Misty here. Wanting petted. Hey, sweetie. My kitty. Anyway. So I think those can all do the same thing. I don't have any Encore Mons on my team, but Nidoking, Steelix, Spectrier, and Grimmsnarl all get Taunt. So the reason I group those together is I think they help with two things. They help with a defensive Mon being a wall or being stally, or they help with an offensive Mon trying to set up. So if I saw a Dragonite wanting to click Dragon Dance, if I'm able to Taunt, it's not able to do that. Same thing if there's a Stallymon wanting to gain some health back and use Recover. You Taunt, it can't do that. So they both kind of shut that down. And Encore would do the same, except they'd be locked into that move. But I don't have any Encore users. But Grimmsnarl, Rotom Frost, and Slowking do all get Trick. So, for example, Grimmsnarl could hold a Choice Band, and it's going up against a Melodic, who really likes to stall and try to keep getting health back. You trick your Choice Band onto it, and now it can only click one move each time it comes in. So those all kind of stop setup and stall to an extent. They don't full on shut it down, but it helps a lot, right? So it can kind of do those two things support-wise all in one. We got screens, so I believe Nidoking and Colossal can only learn Reflect, and everything else on the team can learn Reflect and Light Screen. So that's really cool. Grimmsnarl and Wigglytuff are both dual screens users that you would see a lot in competitive. With Grimmsnarl getting Prankster, that means its screens are going to get priority. So if it's on 1 HP and something's about to come in and kill it, it could set up a light screen and then get killed, and then something has the ability to set up because it can take special hits now better. I think having Reflect and Light Screen are really nice for something like Spectrier and Dragonite, really, to help them set up or to help them come in and sponge up a hit and hit things really hard. So, but Wigglytuff with Light Clay can run screens. Same thing with Slowking and Rotom. Those are Mons that can easily run screens as well. A little harder for Dragonite to be able to run those because, once again, it's usually got so many offensive things it wants to do. But cool to know that so many of them have that option. But those two in the middle and a little bit more Slowking and Rotom have really good capabilities for doing that. Status conditions. Something to note when you're thinking about this is almost every Mon that's not from Gen 8 can learn Toxic. So I didn't include the whole team being able to learn Toxic, but I did have Nidoking on the status list because it's a Poison type. So a Poison type using Toxic will never miss, basically. So it's not 90% accuracy. You don't have to worry about it missing. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure even if like something flew into the air and was unhittable, I'm pretty sure Poison still hits. I don't think it would probably hit through a sub. I don't know, but that's just cool to know, is that with a Poison type, your Toxic will never miss. And also got the Toxic Spikes with that, which we already talked about. Rotom, Frost, Slowking, Wigglytuff, and Grimmsnarl all get Thunder Wave, which paralyzes the opponent and cuts their speed. Rotom, Frost, Colossal, and Spectrier all get Will-O-Wisp, which burn the opponent, which is really nice, especially for trying to shut down a physical attacker. And Slowking gets Yawn, I'm pretty sure, so that can help put to sleep. Is that everything? And then, like, once again, most of the team can get Toxic. But I think that's everything for statusing things. But once again, I'm really glad to have a plethora of things. And I guess I can pretty much inflict any status condition. I don't know if anything on my team. I bet Spectrier even gets, like, confused, right? If I wanted to do that, which is kind of cool. So, phasing. So, anytime something wants to set up, I've got some Mons on my team that can click Roar or Dragon Tail. The other phasing option is Whirlwind. So basically, something sets up a few Dragon Dances, something sets up a few Calm Minds, and they really start racking up and are doing a lot of damage to your team. They're negative priority moves, but if you can take one hit, you can Roar or Dragon Tail them out, and then they will not only be thrown out of the battle, they lose their stat changes upon doing that. Also, since my team does like to hazard stack up, I could get some Toxic Spikes and some Stealth Rocks up, and then Steelix could start clicking Dragon Tail. And each time something's hit out, something else has to come in and take that damage. So I believe all 4 of these get Dragon Tail, and I think Dragonite and Steelix both get Roar. If I wanted to run Roar over, just because Dragon Tail doesn't hit fairies, and it does, it's 90%, so Dragon Tail can miss, which I had happen one time when I ran that on an Assault Vest Slowking. So sometimes something like Roar is better. I don't know if Nidoking gets Roar. I don't think Slowking does. But either way, nice to know I've got some phasing. Lastly, defense, and then we'll look at offense. These will go a little quicker because there's not as many categories, but defense and support can be seen as very similarly. You're trying to stop your opponent from doing damage. But real quick, just looking at all the immunities on my team makes me really happy. Almost every Mon on the team has one immunity, so I like having as many immunities as possible, right? I've got Kartana and Steelix. Both don't take damage from poison-type moves, and Nidoking can't be poisoned. Nidoking and Steelix both don't take damage from electric moves. Wigglytuff is immune to both Ghost and Dragon, being normal and fairy. Rotom, because of its ability Levitate, is immune to ground-type moves. Now, obviously, if a Mon has Mold Breaker, it is not immune anymore. Colossal is only immune if you run Flash Fire as its ability. It's immune to Fire-type moves, which actually can come in handy at times. Grimmsnarl is obviously not affected by Dragon as it's a fairy. It's also not affected by Psychic, being a Dark type. And one other immunity is Dark types are immune to Prankster moves. So if Sableye wanted to come in and taunt my Grimmsnarl, it would not be able to because it's Dark type. So Spectrier is not affected by any normal or fighting type moves unless they have Scrappy. And Dragonite is immune to ground type moves because of its flying type. So lots of abilities on the team that helps out with balancing. Something like Spectrier that doesn't want to take ghost moves makes me able to switch in to my normal type Wigglytuff. Something like Slowbro that doesn't want to take an electric type move has 2 ground types to switch in, so it just helps out a lot with each other. I didn't make a page for helping resistances, but I do have resistances that help each other, like Dragonite is 4 times weak to ice, Colossal resists ice, Rotom Frost resists ice, just little things like that help out. Kartana is 4 times weak to fire. Colossal either 4 times resists fire or takes no damage because of Flash Fire. So having things like that bounce off of each other is really nice. The walls that I see on my team, I see Slowbro as a very good special wall. It can take physical hits very well too, but it's really great specially. Colossal is a great physical wall and a good special wall. Steelix is a phenomenal physical wall and can take special hits well, but it's physical wall. And Wigglytuff, if it didn't have Wish, I probably wouldn't consider a wall, but just for having Wish and that kind of HP it's got can actually make it wall, especially a lot of special type moves really well. So I see those 4 as walls for the team, and with every wall you need wall breakers because other teams are going to have walls. So I think I have a good plethora of breakers here. Spectrier is an amazing special breaker, especially if it's came in and killed something on low HP. It gets that Grim Neigh special attack boost. It starts hitting really hard. Kartana I see as an amazing physical breaker with that 181 physical attack. Once again, even things that usually do want to take physical moves with Kartana's attack stat and coverage moves really just don't want to take hits well. Sheer Force Mons are usually great breakers, and I think Nidoking is just the top tier Sheer Force user. Not really. Landorus Incarnate exists, but it's banned. So Nidoking to me is the top tier Sheer Force breaker, physically or specially. Throw a Life Orb on that thing with Sheer Force, and it's just absolutely crushing things, especially if you can get it behind a substitute. Dragonite is a really good physical breaker, and Dragon Dance helps that even more so. Grimmsnarl has a really good physical attack stat for breaking, and once again, with how easily it can get a bulk up with Prankster, helps it to wall break. And then same thing with Rotom. Just such a naturally good special attacker. That's probably what I see as the least of the breakers, but since Bolt Beam and Electric Ice do hit things so well, I think that makes it a pretty good candidate for a breaker, especially with Nasty Plot being able to up its special attack. Getting very close to done. Now we've got the priority on the team. Priority is really important. As you can see, I don't have a ton of priority users, but I see 3 of these 4 as very good priority users. Nidoking makes okay use of Sucker Punch because 102 base attack is nothing to just ignore. It is going to hit hard, especially if it's super effective, but it's not stab boosted. And once again, there's usually more moves you'd want to run on Nidoking, though that is nice to have as a surprise. But Grimmsnarl with a same type attack bonus boosted Sucker Punch hits so hard, especially if it is banded or if it is running some Prankster bulk up shenanigans. That's so nice to have. I'm so happy that at no point this season my Spectrier will have to face Grimmsnarl with Sucker Punch because I snagged it. So that helps it out a lot. Hitmontop getting Technician means that not only is Mach Punch boosted by being a stab fighting move, but Technician, if it ran that, would boost Mach Punch's power up to a 60 base power move, and it also gets Bullet Punch, I believe. So a Steel priority move is nice too for hitting fairy types. And I believe it gets Sucker Punch too, so it can hit Psychic and Ghost types with some priority. And then Dragonite gets great priority with Extreme Speed, 80 base power normal move, takes priority over other priority moves. So if Dragonite was choice banded and I was worried about something being faster than it, it's going to hit really hard with a choice banded Extreme Speed. Same thing if you start setting up and say a Weavile comes in with Ice Shard. It doesn't matter if Dragonite's faster, that's priority, so then I have Extreme Speed that can hit it. If I'm boosted, might even knock it out. So, and it also gets Aqua Jet. You probably won't ever run Aqua Jet Dragonite over Extreme Speed, but I guess I should never say never. Sometimes you got to run them heat sets. And then for setup, I included the entire team on it just because almost every mon has a setup option. I'm going to say the ones that aren't as good and then work my way up to the great ones. So for example, Nidoking, its setup options are Hone Claws and Curse, which Hone Claws ups its attack and accuracy, which I guess is kind of cool. Curse lowers its speed, ups its attack and defense. I wouldn't consider that ideal for Nidoking. It was rumored before the Crown Tundra came out that it was going to get Nasty Plot, and I was so excited, but it didn't get it. So has no way of boosting its special attack. Wigglytuff, as far as I know, only gets Workup, which boosts its attack and special attack. Probably won't run that. I guess it gets competitive as setup, but you can't rely on that. And then Colossal, it does get like Iron Defense to up its defense to set up, I guess, with Body Press. And it does get Meteor Beam, which is a powerful rock-type move that takes 2 turns, but also raises its special attack. So that's kind of cool, but I don't consider that to be like anything great. The next tier, the next few I'd consider would be you got Hitmontop gets Bulk Up, which ups its defense and attack. I actually like that better for it upping its defense than its attack, but that does make it a viable attacker. Same thing with Slowking. You usually see it defensive, but it can run Calm Mind. I can't remember if it gets Nasty Plot, but if it does, you could run Calm Mind or Nasty Plot with Trick Room and do a lot of damage with its coverage. Steelix does get Iron Defense or Curse to go with Body Press. Steelix also gets Dragon Dance, but do you really want to try to be boosting your base 30 speed? No. I'd rather lower my speed with Curse than get an attack and defense boost. But with Iron Defense and Body Press, it's also a huge threat. Up to the kind of the next tier, I guess you'd say, would be, I'd look at Rotom Frost and Grimmsnarl, both really good setup options. Rotom Frost gets Nasty Plot, which doubles its special attack and hits really hard with that Bolt Beam, with coverage like Shadow Ball or Dark Pulse. And then Grimmsnarl with Bulk Up is a nice setup option if you want to run something like Sucker Punch. Its signature fairy move is very cool with, what's it called? Spirit Break, which is not super powerful, but you don't have to worry about it missing like Play Rough, and it lowers special attack. And then it gets things like Drain Punch, and I think it might even get like fire moves and stuff like that. So it gets good coverage, and with bulk up, that usually makes it able to take a hit before dishing out a hit. I don't think it gets anything like Swords Dance. I could be wrong. I don't know if it gets any. It might get like Calm Mind actually or Nasty Plot for special setup. I wouldn't be surprised if it got Nasty Plot, which could be really cool to run in Trick Room. But then my best 3 setup mons that I've saved for last is you've got Spectrier, gets Nasty Plot. Now, not only does it kind of get pseudo set up with getting a knockout, but you can't guarantee getting a knockout to set you up, so Nasty Plot can set you up. Like, for example, if I go in on a mon that I know is switching, I can click Nasty Plot, and now the attack is doubled, and then they've got to take a +2 Shadow Ball. Same thing with Kartana. You can Swords Dance on a switch. The thing about those two is they're not super bulky, so you can't always be sure to be able to run Swords Dance on Kartana and not die. But if you're sure something's switching out, you get a Swords Dance up. A lot of times it can just be a good game from there. And with Beast Boost, it kind of goes crazy. But I think the best setup is Dragonite, just because it's so reliable with Dragon Dance. Like I said, it is so good at taking at least one hit that it can usually get a Dragon Dance up and then start doing some big damage. So that's the team. That is the Tennessee Titangrowths Season 3 starting roster. I'm really excited for the team. I really don't think I've ever been this excited for a squad. Now, obviously, like I said, I can't for sure tell you that this will be the final team before the end of the season. I'm sure there will be a few switches made at some point. I've never went through a season and not made changes. And most seasons I've used all my free agency moves. I don't know. This season I might not. I might kind of try to hold pat just because I like what I've got. But I'm sure as I play games, I'm going to see weaknesses and have to make changes. But I really love the squad so far. Tell me what you think of my team. Do you think I have any big holes? Do you think the team is good? What do you think of my nicknames? I take a lot of pride in the nicknames. I think I'm pretty strong with my nickname game. So tell me what you think of the names. Tell me some names you'd put for Pokemon. Tell me mons you love to use in Draft League, etc., etc. Tell me if you think I'm going to be the Season 3 champs, or if you think that someone is going to dethrone me. Anyway, I'll have some battles for these teams soon, but I am going to hop on out of here. You guys have a great night. Peace.